welcome to another episode of the Jordan and Matt Show. I'm Jordan.
And I'm Matt.
Matt, first things first, I have to congratulate your Pittsburgh Steelers getting in the win column. So we're both 1-1. We do play each other on Sunday night.
Yes.
We do need to. We'll try to be cordial next week, but there's a little animosity probably on my end because I don't think we're gonna win. But
Well, I don't know. I mean, if we win, our defense will probably have to score 2 touchdowns again. So, I hope we can generate some offense from our defense.
yeah, you are giving a lot of faith to a Raider offense that I don't confidently think can move the ball down the field more than once a game.
Well, the score might be 3-0 then. I don't know.
True, it'll be a good old defensive slugfest.
Yeah.
But hey, we're not talking about pro football. We're talking about high school football, and we had I guess it's a weird week because it wasn't necessarily the biggest week in terms of how many games we had, but I felt like some of the games we had were pretty big games, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Matt, I know you were at a pretty big CVC game to open things up over there. What'd you see? Where were you at?
Yeah. I was at Roseville catching them play Antelope, and this game surprised me, and it's probably because I didn't do my research, but Antelope was 0-4, so I just figured Roseville would roll to victory. And quite early on, I realized that wasn't going to be the case because Antelope was much better than their record showed, and Antelope had not beaten them since 2019. So that's another thing that I didn't realize until afterwards. So I probably should have looked into it a little bit better than that. But that said, it was a good game to go to because it was a very good game, competitive game. And it took a complete Roseville effort to beat Intercom or Antelope. Roseville was trailing 14-7 in the fourth quarter, and actually, this is at the very end of the third quarter, and Antelope went for it on downs and did not make it when Rocco Jara, linebacker for Roseville, stuffed the hole and got the ball back for his offense. And on their next possession, they punted it. First, there was a third down. They stopped them. They punted it. And Roseville, on the next possession, Aaron Salas broke up a 60-yard run. And I'm thinking, I was down at the other end, of course, and I thought, okay, this is a touchdown. And this was the play of the game by Antelope. I mean, they're number 15. His name was Trevon Watson. This guy was lightning fast. And not that Salas is a speed burner by any stretch, but he caught him, came down on his arm, stripped the ball from him at the 6-yard line, and recovered the ball for Antelope. And I'm like, this was going in for the game time touchdown. And I thought, oh my gosh! I said that's the game right there. They're not going to do it. But Roseville's defense again. That was the story of the game. Roseville's defense stepped up time and time again to stop Antelope. And then on this next punt, they stopped them 3-and-out deep in Roseville territory. They punted, and then Fisher. I got a name here. Hold on. Oh, come on now! Don't let me down, though. Well, a boy named Fisher blocked the punt and got the ball in good territory for Roseville's offense, and then they scored. Then Mason Cisnera hit Jaden Broussard for get the ball down the 1-yard line, and then also Aaron Salas took it in to tie the game 14-14 with 7:24 to play. And then Roseville's defense again held it up to a 3-and-out, punted the ball back to Roseville. And Joel Bradley, he's the speed burner for Roseville and kick and punt returner. He looked like he let the ball bounce. He looked like he wasn't going to touch it, and the ball bounced and like this nice high bounce. And he saw, okay, I can get to it. He went and got it, reverse field, took it down to the 2-yard line, and then Salas took it in from there again to put the Tigers up 21-14. That's how they won the game. But it was, a great win for Roseville mainly because they hadn't beaten Antelope, since 2019, and they hadn't beaten them. The current coaching staff or any player on the team had not beaten them. So that was a big win for Roseville. By the name of Justin Fisher was a kid who had the blocked punt. So anyway, Roseville had a nice win there. Moving on, Valley Christian Saturday night. I went to check out Valley Christian. They were playing Riverbank. This game was not as good, not as close. I mean, Valley Christian won easily, 46-7. They improved to 3-2. Quarterback Thomas Rominger completed 11 of 20 passes for 173 yards, 4 touchdown passes. Chase Cleary caught 6 passes for 140 yards and 3 scores. And Cleary also rushed for 84 yards on 5 carries and scored a rushing touchdown as well. And Rominger scored a rushing touchdown. And Matthew Larson caught a touchdown. And Roger Wilson had 72-yard rushing and scored a touchdown. So just a complete effort for Valley Christian. Offense, defense, they played well. And they are enjoying their bye week this week, as are a lot of teams. Granite Bay played Vacaville Friday night and won convincingly, 34-13, to improve to 3-2. Joe Catalico liked the effort from his team against a team that's generally pretty good. Vacaville, they're good every year, but Granite Bay got off to a fast start with 4 touchdowns in the first quarter and never looked back. Carter Jackson had 3 of them. He finished the game with 147 yards rushing on 17 carries. And Jack Merritt gained 67 yards on the ground, and Isaiah Ennie had 42 yards on the ground. So Granite Bay just kept it on the ground, used the clock, won the game easily, and now they've got a bye, waiting to play. Who do they open up with in the SFL?
Delaware, because they do rivalry week to
Delaware, yeah.
SFL every year.
So they're getting ready for that. And lastly, before I hand it back to you, Oakmont, they had a game on Thursday, their second game on Thursday. And let me tell you, if any team needs a bye week, it's Oakmont. And it's because they got a lot of guys coming back next week when they play next Friday. Because they get 2 guys who are out injured are supposed to be healthy again. They get 3 guys who were let's see here. 2 transfers who had to sit out 30 days. They're coming with it. Plus, they get 3 other players who are ineligible. So they get 7 players back when they come back. And if any team needs help, it's them. And I'm excited for them because they get 7 players back in the lineup. They get to rest some guys, and they could be back to where they were playing early in the season when they played fairly decently, as opposed to the last 2 weeks when they got blown out. So they lost this game. They lost to Foothill 42-6 or Fairfield 42-6. And Coach Jake Messina is just pointing. He's been pointing this week to the team. The message is the same after every game. Hey, we got to wait till we get these guys back. Wait till we get these guys back. So they get them back. They got to get them in the lineup. These people that transferred, they haven't played. They have to get used to the system and all. But they're hoping once these 7 guys come back and they can give this team a boost, they can win a few games. So we'll see what happens on that front.
Definitely. And I know, to your point, Oakmont is a team that it feels like this is one of those years where, it may not look like it, but this is almost like a foundation year where it's like, hey, the record may not be great, but this is like the start, especially, a newer head coach is kind of one of those where, hey, this is a start of building this program up. And, it's, as we've seen time and time again, it doesn't happen overnight. And, one of the schools that I'll actually talk about in this upcoming segment kind of was in a similar boat to Oakmont when I started here, and now they're starting to reap the benefits of it.
And it doesn't happen overnight because, I was here when Folsom was not a powerhouse, and they had to go through, 4 or 5 years of struggling. And Oakmont, I remember Messina telling me early in the year, next year they'll have more numbers. Like they've been, when West Park opened, that school took a number of their players. So next year they'll have even more bodies, and the year after they'll have even more bodies. So they'll get them out of this.
Yeah. And, I guess I'll start with the school that, was building the foundation when I started here, and they're reaping those benefits now. Bear River. They played Tamalpais on Thursday night, Thursday night football action. This was an interesting game. I guess before the season, Bear River needed a game. Tamalpais needed a game, but they could only play on Thursdays. And they reached out to Bear River, and Bear River was kind of on the fence about it because they're like, well, we don't want to have to go down to the Bay Area next year. We did 2 trips to Modesto this year. Like, we don't want to have a big, long road trip. And Tamalpais was like, that's fine. We just need 1 game. So didn't even have to schedule a home and home. So out in Lake of the Pines. Also, a fun fact, apparently Tamalpais is the alma mater of Tupac. So that's fun. So this was an interesting game. Tamalpais ended up winning 42-21, gave Bear River their first loss of the year. But what was interesting about it is, in my opinion, this game kind of marked the resurgence of Bear River football. Tamalpais was a bigger team, stronger team, faster team, and by all accounts, a better team. But it just the way Bear River handled themselves in this game felt like it was that, okay, this isn't, the Bruins of past seasons. And it was kind of cool, just the vibe around that stadium. I mean, Matt, I know you've covered some Thursday night games. It feels like the Thursday night games aren't as, excuse me, feels like the Thursday night games aren't usually as, upbeat, and the crowd's a little more dead than what you get on a Friday night. That was not the case in this game. I mean, the vibe around this stadium was awesome. Bear River was coming in 3-0 for the first time since 2019. It was the home opener, and I actually was talking to one of the teachers at Bear River, and they said that they can't remember the last time a football game has felt like this at Bear River. Another funny tidbit, we were there for Gold Country Media. The Union was there, and the SAC-B was there, and I asked the coach, when was the last time you had 3 different papers at a Bear River football game? I mean, but again, that's showing how this program has grown in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Coach Tanner Mathias said after that he felt better after that game than he did against Kennedy when they won 52-0, against Grace Davis when they won 37-27. He said that, this was a game that team kind of needed to, I don't want to say bring them back down to earth a little bit, but, to prepare them for league, because things get a little tougher in league. But he was, by all accounts, happy with how the team played. Tamalpais quarterback Braden Young had an unbelievable game. He passed for 335 of his 411 yards in the first half. Wow. He threw 5 of his 6 touchdown passes in the first half as well, which brings it to an interesting point. Bear River trailed, I want to say it was 34-14 at halftime. They held Tamalpais to 8 points in the second half, and the Red-Tailed Hawks did not stop running their offense. Bear River buckled down on defense. So it goes to show, the improvement they made.
Yeah.
The Bruins had a few times where, they were knocking on the door and scoring and making it a close game, and just it turned into one of those things where, a costly fumble or something like that, or they would even have times where they'd match score for score, but unfortunately they just dig themselves in too deep of a hole. They fell to 3-1, and now they've got a tough test this Friday night, a game that I'll be at, but we'll get there later. Next game, Del Oro and Casa Roble. This one, also a tale of two halves, a very interesting game. Del Oro, I was expecting this to be an offensive, shootout, like, a 45-35 game, something like that, which is why I was a little surprised when Casa Roble was leading 7-3 at halftime. Casa Roble's defense came to play. They stood tall all night. I think they had 3 goal line stands against Del Oro, one where they forced a field goal, and 2 where they sent the Eagles back empty-handed. So if you have 3, goal-to-go situations and you end up only giving up 3 points out of that, you got to be pretty happy with that. They contained Caden Pinnock in a way that I haven't really seen before. Pinnock was still able to get his yards through the air, but they really took away the scramble from him. I've never really seen a defensive line. I saw Placer put pressure on Pinnock, but he was able to elude it. I've never really seen a team be able to put that pressure on Pinnock to the point that he couldn't escape it.
Wow.
And they were playing fast and aggressive on defense. They were using quarterback spies. They were getting creative with their linebackers and corners and maybe blitzing guys from different positions. And I think it kept Del Oro guessing and kind of had them frustrated. And then Casa couldn't really move the ball all first quarter. Really the bulk of their yards in the first half came from Del Oro penalties. But then all of a sudden they had like a 4th and 14 with 40 seconds left in the first half. They're down 3-0. And after a very long interaction between Casa's head coach and the referee, I don't really know what he was complaining about, but it was like a 4 or 5 minute interaction, and he was out on the field. Del Oro fans were letting him hear it. There was booze, stuff like that. I mean, I was kind of like, I didn't know what was going on, but I have a weird feeling it was by design, because you could see how frustrated Del Oro's coaches and players and everyone was getting, and they're like, why aren't they flagging this guy? And no flag ends up coming out. We finally get back to play. and all of a sudden Connor Campbell throws a 32-yard touchdown pass to Logan March, and Casa Robles leading going into half. I feel like that was by design to almost get Del Oro a little bit flustered. And if that was, hey, kudos to Casa for that, because that's very creative. I've never seen that, and it's kind of risky too, but it paid off. And then Del Oro came down. They took the second half is really where things turned. Del Oro outscored Casa 21-0 in the third quarter. The real turning point in the game, Del Oro came down. They scored. Marcel Urquhart caught a 15-yard touchdown pass from Caden Pinnock. And then there was Casa Robles got the ball or punted the ball away. Del Oro ended up not scoring on a goal to go situation. Casa Robles took over at the 2 and then fumbled. And Del Oro recovered at the 1, and then they scored on third down. But to the point of Casa's defense, Del Oro was on the 1-yard line going into the end zone, and it took them 7 plays to get the ball in for a touchdown. Casa stuffed them, and then they didn't score till third down. So again, a testament to Casa Robles' defense. But then things just got out of hand after that. Marcel Urquhart had 3 touchdowns in the second half. He had 46 yards in this game. He would have had a lot more, but he had one really big negative rush where he dove on a fumble. But still, good game for Marcel Urquhart. I asked Coach Mike Maben about what changed with Del Oro's approach at halftime, and I love this answer. He said, I saw that Casa had 2 guys that were close to 300 pounds plugging up holes in the middle, and we made the conscious decision that we shouldn't run at those guys anymore. Just great insight right there. And, I got to agree with that decision. Caden Pinnock, 19 of 24 passing, 335 yards. His top target was Tommy Poe at 8 catches for 122 yards. Bo Save at 128 yards on 4 catches. And again, Del Oro now 5-0. Going into SFL play, they got a bye week this week. And Casa Robles, I know that was their first loss of the season, but I don't think they need to hang their heads on it. I don't think the score really showed how close that game was. And Casa Robles definitely proved they can hang with the big boys. And then one other one before I throw it back to you, Whitney and Chico. Whitney fell to Chico 27-17. The Wildcats led 10-0 at halftime. And Chico rattled off 27 unanswered points in the second half to win 27-17. The big change in this one is, or the big difference maker in this one was Dion Coleman. He struck first in the third quarter with a 1-yard touchdown, the first of 3 scores on the night for him. He finished again with 16 carries for 190 yards. And I asked Whitney's coach about it, and Zach McNally said, a lot of it was he was just running so hard that they couldn't stop him. But then a good part of it, too, was, just weak tackling and things they got to work on. And I imagine it's got to be frustrating for Whitney when, you're sitting at 2-3, and realistically, they could probably be 4-1 or 5-0 if they just cleaned up some silly mistakes. But yeah, Chico with a big win there. Wildcat offense really struggled in this one. They just Logan Sindelar completed 7 of 18 passes, but they were for big chunks of yards because it still threw for 134 yards with those 7 completions. But obviously not what you're looking for and something that's not going to cut it in the SFL. Whitney only averaged 3.5 yards per carry in this one. They didn't even get 100 yards rushing. Zane Amin led the Wildcats with 56 yards on 5 carries, but 40 of them came on 1 run. So, Whitney now 2-3 heading into SFL play where things get very, very tough. They kind of put themselves behind the 8 ball a little bit, but I asked Coach Zach McNally about it, and he said, these guys are still optimistic they can make a run at the playoffs. We have 5 games to get 2 wins to get that 4th win. They said we don't consider this week a bye week. We consider it a work week, and they're just looking forward to getting back after it. And they start with a tough one because they got Rockland in the Quarry Bowl. Matt, back over to you. What were the other games in your area?
Well, Oak Ridge finished off a strong preseason with a 31-7 victory over Pleasant Valley in Chico. Not only improving to 5-0, but sets them up going well into their bye week, and they open up with Folsom, so that'll next week to prepare for that game, who everybody knows is the big game for them in the SFL. I mean, they're all big games, but it starts with Folsom. Coach Casey Taylor is, he's proud of his non-league record. He said Spanish Springs was the top 10 team in Nevada when they played them. Grant was number 2 when they played him. Madison of San Diego was a number 2 or 3 team in San Diego. He said Clayton Valley was a top 10 team in the Bay Area. And Pleasant Valley has won something like, I don't know. He wasn't specific. He said eight of 10 section championships up in the North section. So, I mean, by those accounts, it sounds like a pretty good schedule, and they're 5-0. So, and the Trojans have found a way to get it done. They're only scoring, I think the most points they scored was this game, 31. But no, they beat Spanish. They scored more against Spanish Springs, but most of their games have been 21, 28 points. But their defense is so good that they don't need to score that much. But this game was it was 31-7 the final score, but it was closer than that. Oak Ridge only led 14-0 at halftime, or 14-7 at halftime. So it was a gritty game, is how Taylor described it. But Eric Orme scored 3 rushing touchdowns, and Jaden Anderson scored the other on a pass from Joaquin Grace Mercado, who completed 10 of 20 passes for 140 yards and that touchdown. And Anderson caught 5 passes for 88 yards, while Orme rushed for 77 yards on 15 carries. And Alex Hensley also booted a 33-yard field goal. So Trojans improved to 5-0. They got to be thrilled where they're sitting at right now as they wait for the Bulldogs on the 29th. And then Vista Del Lago, they had a home game against Sac High, and Coach Carl Landis was really pleased with their defense in this game. Vista won. I don't have the score, but I noticed I forgot to put the score in the story.
But it was like 48 to something.
It's like 42-14, 12 or something like that. But I know they allowed 12 points because Sac High was coming in averaging 24, so they held them to half their total. And some of that was substitution at the end. So really, they probably chalk them up to 1 touchdown, really. So, but great defensive effort, and Vista's defense has improved every game. They allowed 35 points in the opening week to Manteca, who's a great team. But if you get down to it, the defense stopped Manteca, and Vista had a minute to go to move the ball down the field. Now that's not great, but that's something. They had a minute to do. They got the ball back. So, and then they shut out Ponderosa, and then Vanden. They after giving up 21 points in the first half, they held them to a field goal in the second half. Placer, they held to 7 points. So, Vista's defense has really been picking it up, and Kyle Landis is excited about it. He said Lorenzo Becerra and Jared Ventura on the interior defensive line, and Max Voda, Luke Lundback, and Logan Murray on the outside have been playing lights out. Camden King, the safety, lead the team. Matt Long, linebacker, lead the team. Nick Navarre and Trevor Casser, 2 linebackers, had 6 and 5 tackles in this game against Sac High. Offensively, Johnny Kent had another good night throwing the ball, 17 of 24 for 263 and 4 touchdowns. Willie Green caught 3 passes for 95 yards, and that was a good game for him. He's kind of been I know Vista had high hopes for him, and it's kind of quiet, so that's a nice night for him. Dominic Rostami caught 5 passes for 85 yards. Matt Werpy and Tyler Friedel also caught touchdown passes. Xavier Bryan rushed 21 times for 78 yards. And they had 2 other guys who gained 30 yards rushing. Jack Cromwell, 39 yards. Ethan Jones, 30 yards. So, complete win for Vista against a team that was winless coming in, so you expected it. They should roll in the league until Christian Brothers, which is the last game of the season. So, back to you.
All right. I've got a couple Auburn schools too that fell in some games. One of them was, I guess, both results were a little surprising. One was closer than I thought it was going to be, and one was a lot more lopsided than I thought it was going to be. And the team that won was not the team I expected. I'll start with that one. That was Colfax and Center. I thought Colfax would win this one. I think I picked 31-21 Colfax. Given that they played a tougher non-league schedule, they looked good against Union Mai. I figured they've usually had Center's number in recent years. But Center ended up winning this one 55-21.
Yeah, that shocked me too.
That was a little surprising for me. A couple things were really the factors in this one. Colfax's rushing attack, which has been its bread and butter for the first couple weeks, they struggled to get going. They failed to get 100 rushing yards for the first time this season. Malachi Thompson still carried the majority of the workload. He had 22 carries for 87 yards. But the big difference in this one was quarterback River Roach. He had, he's completed 17 of his 30 passes and 178 yards and 2 touchdowns, but he threw 3 interceptions. And, that's going to hurt, especially playing against a team like Center who has a pretty decent quarterback and it can make you pay. His top target of the night was leading receiver Austin Lyden, who still had 7 catches for 147 yards. He also caught both the touchdowns and he had a rushing touchdown. But that's going to hurt Colfax because now they drop to 3-2 on the season, while Center improves to 4-1. But even tougher for Colfax is now they're playing defending league champion Sutter on the road this Friday. Sutter's 4-1. They look the part this year. I think the league is going to be kind of between them and 12 Bridges, and that's going to sting Colfax because you could potentially be staring at an 0-2 hole Friday night if you don't pull out an upset on the road. The other one was Miraloma and Forest Hill. This one ended up being an offensive shootout. The second consecutive week for the Wildfires, it was 49-32 the week before. This one was 52-36, but Miraloma came out on top. Miraloma quarterback Brennan Collins gave Forest Hill's defense headaches with his legs rather than his arm. He had 21 carries for 265 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also tossed through 2 touchdowns, so his arm was still working. Matadors are 5-0 now. Forest Hill falls to 1-4 as it enters the bye week, which may not look great on paper, especially because they have a tough league game to start with Delta. But I feel like there's plenty of reason for optimism, especially because that offense is averaging 28.6 points per game. So, it's not like one of those situations where you're like, oh, you just can't move the ball. It's like, okay, well, it's just one of those where things aren't going your way right now, but I still think they're going to be just fine moving forward. And then keeping it in the SMAL, Western Sierra lost to Valley over the weekend. That was the first win of the season for Valley. Both these teams were coming in. Someone had to get the first win. 28-0, the Vikings ended up coming out on top. In a weird way, I don't want to say it's a breath of fresh air for the Wolves, but when you're coming in and you give up 59, 49, and 48 in your first 3 games, I think you'll take the 28 because it's showing improvement. I know the offense didn't move the ball the way they were hoping to, but they've got another chance this Friday. But Western Sierra, it's one of those, again, it's a year where they're trying to lay the foundation of the program. I know Coach Otis Washington is only in his second year there. And the first year, he said the big thing, especially with a school like Western Sierra that's a very academic school. So the first thing was getting kids interested in football on campus. That was a big battle of the first year. He's like, I have so many kids that come out there and they've never watched football. They've never heard it. They don't really know anything about it. And he said this year, he's still dealing with that, but now he's getting more kids that are interested in football and, more kids that want to come out. So it's Western Sierra is one of those programs that they will get there eventually. But like we say, Matt, it takes time. And right now they're seeing that, but I do think they're going to continue to improve as the season goes on. Back over to you for the other games. Where were you at?
Yeah, this last one out here is Wood Creek traveled to Lincoln to a team that hadn't lost a game to play a team that had won a game. So you can pretty much guess the result of that game. 52-6, Wood Creek win. They improved to 4-0, while Lincoln dropped to 0-5. That said, Wood Creek coach Brad Hunkin said it was Lincoln's military service game, and he said it was a great atmosphere, great crowd, great student section. So, but and Wood Creek came out slow. I think they only scored once in the first quarter, but anyway, by the time the game was over, they had 52 points, and they ran 37 plays on offense. So it was a quick night. They had 31-6 at halftime. And they were rolling. Austin Catapotis, quarterback, completed 5 of 7 passes for 165 and 2. Brody Krupp and Gio, my buddy Gio, caught touchdown passes. I can't pronounce Gio's last name, so I'm on a first name basis with Gio. 9 different players ran the ball for the Timberwolves. 56 yards by Josiah Melendez led the way. James Williams carried 4 times for 43 yards. Dylan Pro carried 5 carries, which was the most of anybody, and had 40 yards and a touchdown. And then that's pretty much it for the Timberwolves. play Intercom on Friday. That's going to be a good game. They're 4-1, so two teams with one loss, combined one loss, and they're only lost to Camden Del Oro, so that should be a good game.
Yeah, and I'll kind of echo on that with the Lincoln side of things. The bright spot for Lincoln, I know the 0-5 start hurts, but you have a decent night from the quarterback for the first time in a while. Joe Brown, 12 of 19, 117 yards and a touchdown. No interceptions. That's something to build off going into league. Lance Tingy rushing, he had 10 carries for 43 yards, 22 of which came on one play. But this is one of those. Oh, and then Michael Neely for the Zebras, he had 7 receptions, 55 yards, and Tingy had 1 reception for 57 yards, and that was the touchdown. So a couple bright spots for Lincoln to build off going in the bye week. I know this is kind of, I guess you could say the start kind of shell shocked them. I know Lincoln is a team we're used to being very competitive at this point in the season, and I don't think they expected to drop those first 2 games to River City and Rio Linda, and then things got obviously tougher with Casa, Roseville, Wood Creek. Things don't get much easier with Placer and Nevada Union, or Nevada Union and Placer, I guess in that order, is their next 2 games. I think they graduated a lot last year. It's tough in Lincoln right now, but again, this program is building their way back up. They're taking their lumps right now. This is a young team. I feel like they're going to improve as the season goes on. That, in my opinion, I haven't gotten to see them yet, but at least a box score watching, that was probably the most complete the offense has looked all season, where they've had big plays, they had opportunities against a very good Wood Creek team, and they, obviously not a great game, but gave you something to build off of. Last football game I have to talk about is the other team over in Lincoln, 12 Bridges, who are off to a 5-0 start, and currently the second-ranked team in Division 5 behind Casa Roble right now. They continue to roll through their schedule. They toppled Wheatland 55-6 in Lincoln on Friday night to open PVL play. They scored early and often in Friday's game, leading 25-0 at the end of the first quarter and 52-6 at halftime. Quarterback Whit Cruz completed 11 of his 15 passes for 225 yards and 4 touchdowns. He had no problem spreading the ball around, as no receiver had more than 3 receptions and 4 different receivers caught a touchdown. That was Evan Barrientos, Isaiah Rodriguez, Nathan Crawford, and Connor Flaherty. He put the Rhinos on the board in the first minute, connecting with Rodriguez on a 43-yard touchdown pass. And 12 Bridges is just rolling right now. Crawford ran the ball 10 times for 85 yards and 2 touchdowns, bringing his season total up to 14. The bulk of his yards came on a 51-yard touchdown run. Ryan Wanger found the end zone as well. He carried the ball 3 times for 21 yards. But I think one of the most impressive parts is 12 Bridges' defense. They held Wheatland to just 179 yards of total offense, and the Raging Rhinos' front 7 was dominant, holding the Pirates to 5 rushing yards all night. Through the first half of the season, they're 5-0. They've outscored their opponents 229-38. Have scored over 40 points in each of its first 5 games and have had 5 running clocks. So 12 Bridges really looks apart. They played Bear River this Friday. That's the game I'm going to be at. Last year was a close game, 25-23 in Lake of the Pines. So I'm interested. This is a much better Bear River team. There's obviously a much better 12 Bridges team as well. I'm interested to see if it's going to be a close game. Fun little tidbit too. 12 Bridges head coach Chris Bean was the JV coach at Bear River for a very long time. So a little bit, I want to say, I guess I can't say a homecoming if the game is in Lincoln, but a reunion of sorts, if you will, for 12 Bridges. So looking forward to that game. Matt, what about some of the other sports? What did you get to see this week?
Yeah, Folsom High volleyball. They're off to a great start. They beat Del Oro in the league opener last Thursday in 3 straight, and then defeated Vista Lago, who's crosstown rival, in 5 on Friday the next day. Lost the first 2 sets, then won 3 in a row. And then I just checked before, because I realized they played Rockland last night, and they lost to Rockland in 5. And again, same thing as Vista except backwards. They won the first 2 games, but then Rockland won 3 in a row. 25-15, 25-22, 15-13 to sweep them. So that's what Folsom did to St. Francis not long ago. So they got a little taste of their own medicine there. But Rockland is a team that starts 5 sophomores. So they're going to be a good team. But and then Oak Ridge lost to Rockland. Oak Ridge, we're talking the defending D1 champions. They lost to Rockland last Thursday in their league opener too. So Rockland is off to at least a 2-0 start. I don't know if they had a third league game, but no, because they would have started off Thursday against Oak Ridge. Yeah, so they're 2-0 and they're looking real strong. And Monday night, I was at a flag football game between two unbeaten teams, Wood Creek and Antelope. And this is a good crowd. I bet you there was 200 people there. So it was a good crowd, and there's more people on Antelope's side, but they scored the first touchdown, and I thought, oh, this is going to be good because, I mean, it was a nice play, a nice run, and I thought this is going to be a good game. But then Wood Creek, they answered, and then they scored before their 6 possessions, and Antelope scored 2 of their 6, so they won 26-12. Wood Creek improved to 9-0, and they're talking undefeated. They're 9-0. The only teams they have not played yet are Bella Vista and Roseville, and those teams combined have 1 win between them. So you got to figure they're going to win. So they had West Park and Antelope were similar scores, 26-12. But the coach Malcolm Thomas said, that the West Park played good defense, and they got to play Antelope again, but that'll be at home. And so they're feeling confident. They've outscored opponents 242-68, which is over 9 games, an average winning score of 26-7. Junior quarterback Izzy Devereaux completed 14 passes for 189 yards. That's an average of 13.5 yards a catch. And let's see, Ryan Snare caught. She was the main target. She had, gosh dang it, I can't find it. She had 7 catches for 101 yards, while Amaya Grant caught 3 passes for 39 yards. So Wood Creek is looking good, and that is all I have for now.
All right, I've got a couple other ones. Placer flag football got their first league win. They beat Cordova 12-6 the other day, so big win for Placer there. Also, a shout out to Bear River girls volleyball. They're out to a 5-0 start to PVL play. They beat Lyndhurst, 12 Bridges, Sutter, Marysville, and Center. They play against Wheatland tonight. Should be a good match there, but that's a team that's really surging right now. 19-1 overall. Del Oro girls flag football 10-2 right now. They are in first place in the SFL. I want to say they're 5-0 or 6-0 in the SFL play. So that's a team that you're gonna want to keep an eye on. A couple other ones. Sierra College, their football team out to a 2-1 start. They won their first ever game under the lights. They beat Reedley College 26-23 in double overtime. If you look at the box score of this, no one looked particularly impressive, but they found a way to get it done. So big for Sierra there. 2-1 now on the season. Sierra women's volleyball improves to 10-2 on the season. They're ranked 4th in the CCCAA rankings. They beat Sac City 3-0 on Thursday night. Paige Skinner led the way with 12 kills. Taylor Stoltz had 10. Sofia Guerrero had 25 digs, and Grace Rodriguez had 12 assists. And then one other one I want to give a shout out to is Sierra Women's Water Polo. They're 4-1. They did have their first loss of the season on Thursday against West Valley, but still 4-1 start for the Wolverines. And they return home today, Wednesday, actually, to take on Fresno City. Matt, we got a big Friday night ahead of us. Where are you going to be this Friday? And, what are you expecting?
Yeah, one more thing. I forgot. Folsom High picked up their first flag football win in history last Thursday. I believe they defeated St. Francis. I don't have that in front of me. But Kiara Lacombe had 2 touchdowns with 129 yards receiving. Kiana Wilson had 2 touchdowns and 48 yards. Kinga Major had 1 touchdown, 47 yards. Mia Keller completed 20 of 28 passes for 310 yards. Those might be the best numbers I've seen of anybody. Completion percentage and yardage. That's incredible. and she also had 23 yards rushing for the Bulldogs. And then I have an athlete of the week here. James Ing, Folsom High freshman, won the Josh Ruff Invitational 2 weeks ago, September 9th, finishing the 3,400-meter race in 12 minutes and 1 second. And he's my athlete of the week. And Folsom High cross-country coach Steve Kinishita said that James has the potential to be as good as any runner who's come through Folsom High. So that's a name to keep an eye out for. All right, this Friday, I've been waiting for this day because I get to see my Folsom Bulldogs play for the first time this season. Unfortunately, they're playing De La Salle, so it might not be that pretty, but yeah, so that's obviously a big game, first home game for the Bulldogs. I'm sure it'll be a sellout. A lot of people there excited. Last time they met was in the NorCal title game last year. And Folsom lost that game, 17-14. Folsom lost to Sarah earlier this season, 28-14. Sarah, a week or two after that, beat De La Salle 28-0, which, Coach Paul Daugherty said he feels Sarah is a better team than De La Salle, but he also feels that De La Salle is a tougher matchup for his team. So he's, he says they got to play better than they did against Sarah, and they got to come out faster. They can't come out and fall behind by, 21 points again. And maybe most importantly, they had to be able to run the ball because they couldn't run the ball last in the NorCal championship game. They averaged like 2 yards a carry. So they have to find a way to run the ball. And if they don't, it's going to be a long night for the Bulldogs.
Definitely. I think, this is a game too that what I love about this game every year is that De La Salle still schedules it every year because, when Folsom started kind of standing toe-to-toe with them, I feel like it would have been pretty easy for De La Salle to be like, all right, we'll just stick with our northern section teams and play Pittsburgh and, all that. But I love that De La Salle is still kind of rising to that challenge. And it feels like now, I guess it's safe to call it a rivalry at this point, right? I mean, they play every year now. It's kind of like Spencer and Vista is a rivalry where it's like, look, you played every year for the last decade, but it's not like there's any this one has more implications, obviously, than Placer Vista does.
Well, I mean, it is a rivalry because Folsom's won a couple, before they took their lumps, but they've won a couple, and they are playing every year. So, and they've been close. They've won a couple. The couple they lost have been close. So, yes, I would call this a rivalry. And Daugherty said De La Salle is. I mean, they're 2-2, but he said they're as good as ever. They're good defensively. That's probably his biggest worry is how good defensively they are. But Folsom's good defensively too, and they have a quarterback who can run the ball this year. In past years, their quarterback hasn't been really much of a runner, so it's always more difficult to defend when the quarterback's a runner. But I'm predicting Folsom finds a way just because I like their defense. 17-14 is my score. That's what I'm going with.
All right, I like it. My game, I will be at 12 Bridges in Bear River over at 12 Bridges High School, so one freeway exit away from me. This is going to be a fun one. Bear River faced its toughest test of the season last week, and I think this team is a better team than the team they faced last week. So it's going to be, another tough test for Bear River. I think the game they played last week, it was 42-21. It could have been closer. I am interested to see how Bear River kind of corrects some of those mistakes and some of those hiccups. This is probably, in my opinion, the toughest team 12 Bridges has faced this year too. I still feel like the Rhinos are going to get it done handily, but I think Bear River is going to punch him in the mouth a way that 12 Bridges hasn't really been hit yet. I definitely don't expect a running clock in this one. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. My first time getting to see 12 Bridges this year. This is a team that, in my opinion, everyone in Division 5 right now is talking about Casa Roble, and for good reason with the schedule they played and having just stood toe-to-toe against Del Oro. But in my opinion, I think 12 Bridges is good enough to beat Casa Roble. I don't know if I would say they're going to beat them the majority of the times when they meet up, but they definitely have the pieces to beat them. And I think this is a 12 Bridges team that is kind of flying under the radar a little bit in terms of Division 5. I feel like a lot of people are saying Casa is just going to get that D5 title. This is a 12 Bridges team that took the state champion to double overtime in the playoffs last year. So, it's not like this is a team that's a bad team. They're returning 22 starters. I'm really looking forward to watching this game. I think it's going to be a really fun one. But that's going to, I guess, just about do it for this week's episode of the Jordan and Matt Show. Matt, do we have anything you want to add before we get going?
Well, I ask you this every week because I forget to check myself. How are we doing prediction-wise?
We had a rough week, Matt. You are catching up to me, which is not okay. Bill's still leading at 39-11. Like we said, he's cheating. We just need to find a way to prove it. But I'm at 34-16. You're at 33-17. So you're hot on the trail. I think we're going to start. These predictions are going to get a little harder when we get into league play. It's not.
That's where Poindexter is going to start.
Exactly. That's where we benefit from being out there on Friday nights.
Yeah.
So, we're coming for him, but it's going to be interesting. I think it's possible that we could have a 3-way tie when it's all said and done. So.
He's only 5 games ahead of us, right?
He's still 5 games, but hey, one bad week, or as we know, he just forgets to pick a game. So, which we're counting those as losses. So,
yeah, definitely,
we're coming for him. But if you want to keep an eye on our standings, go to our website and see where we're at, because we're hot on this trail, and our picks come out every Thursday morning. So that will do it for this week's episode of the Jordan and Matt Show. Though I've been Jordan.
Well, I've been Matt.
We will see you next week.